The Suzuki GSX-S1000GX is the epitome of the modern sports tourer. So how did it stack up when I rode it out on the road, and is it a sports tourer you should be considering? Underneath this slick new bodywork lies the tried and trusted 999cc inline 4 engine that puts out 150 horsepower and 106 newton meters of torque. It follows on from the GSX-S1000 GT. This has a slightly different remit, slightly higher bars, more ground clearance, longer travel suspension, a little bit more comfort, but it's also got a whole host of new features, including a lot of electronics in it, which set this aside from that GT model. So let's delve into that a little bit more. I wanted to keep this relatively brief. This is a first ride review. I don't want to bog you down with too much technology, but we will have a brief look at what that electronic package offers for this bike. The new GX is fitted with a Bosch 6-axis IMU, and that feeds data to control things like the lift limiter, roll torque control, active damping control, SRAS, motion track brake system, and the slope dependent control system, making this the most technologically advanced Suzuki road bike ever built. All of this can be controlled or monitored through the very clear 6.5-inch TFT screen, which I think Suzuki have done an excellent job with. The hand controls are simple to operate, which means that although there are some complex control variations that can be adjusted, it's an easy task. There are 3 rider modes, A, B and C, or active, basic and comfort, each of which has a preset power, traction and damping setting, although these can be changed individually and independently of the mode's base setting. At the bottom you'll find key data such as trips, oil temperature, air temperature, odometer, battery charge, fuel consumption and remaining range. Plus there's a host of options in the menus to set this up exactly how you want, with units of measurement, etc, etc. There's also smartphone connectivity for phone calls, music and navigation. It's a very functional and clean display, which gets a big thumbs up from me. Now of course some people might not like this new styling. I think it's a pretty handsome looking bike. You've got these very small dual LED projector headlights here, much brighter than you would imagine, particularly with the main beam. I've no issue with those at all. And you've got a very nice little daytime running light here that sits on the side, all LED, including indicators and the rear light. And I think in combination of this with that fairing, I think makes it a really nice looking bike. But as we always know, looks are subjective. From a practicality point of view, the bike works pretty well too. The seat's reasonably comfortable. I didn't find it as comfortable as I thought I would for the bike it is. I'm 5'10", I've got a 32 inside leg. And as you can see, I can sit and perfectly flat foot this, so it's got that little bit of extra height over the GT, but if you're shorter of leg or shorter in height, it won't be a problem. I can flat foot this with a good bend in my leg, and it's actually a very easy bike to maneuver around. So let's just tick off another couple of key numbers. The bike weighs 232 kilograms, fully fueled and ready to go, and you've got 150 millimeters of suspension travel. The couple of bugbears that I've got, again, which I'll talk about in the riding section, is the screen, which is not adjustable, and the fact that it doesn't come with heated grips as standard, which I think for a touring bike is a prerequisite, certainly here in the UK. We get a decent amount of range out of this tank as well, but bear in mind that engine puts out 150 horsepower. There is always going to be limitations on the range that you would get from this type of bike. You'll probably be stopping more frequently than you would do in some of the tourers that have a big tank option, but you'll also probably be getting to those petrol stations much quicker too. So I've gone through all the technical and spec aspects of the bike. Let's have a quick chat about the riding experience. And I'll start with ergonomics. That's usually where I start. When I first got on this bike, I thought, actually it feels very similar to the GSX-S1000 GT. But subsequently, having had a look at this at the GT, there is quite a bit of difference. The bars are about 25-30 mil higher. They are further back and closer to you, so you're not quite as stretched out, you're not leaning quite as much forward. The pegs are in a slightly different position as well. it's on the sportier side of touring, let's put it that way. Now, although the bike is initially comfortable, I think that seat, there is room for improvement if you're going to be on it all day, every day, which is really what this bike was designed for. Well, that's just a personal thing. It's not uncomfortable, put it that way, but there are better ones out there. I find the Tracer, as an example, a little bit more comfortable than this. But outside of that, the hand-foot thumb triangle is good. There's a couple of niggles that I've got in terms of ergonomics. They're both really quite minor, but the first one are the mirrors. They just feel like they could do with going out a little bit more. I don't really get a great view behind me. There's a lot of shoulder and elbow, no matter how much I adjust those. So just another inch or so outside would make all the difference. But, you know, I can live with that. The other thing is this screen. Now, the screen is adjustable, but it is only adjustable with the aid of tools. You've got bolts you have to undo, take some grommets out, move it up and down. I think it's 3 positions on there that you can move it into. At the moment, it's in its lowest position, and I'm getting quite a lot of wind blast on my shoulders and across my chest. A little bit of wind noise on my helmet, and I think that's coming from underneath, because if I block that off, it suddenly gets a lot quieter. So I will experiment with that and maybe put it into a slightly higher position. But in terms of ergonomics, no complaints really, other than the mirrors and the screen, but they're personal preferences. Obviously, the engine is a well tried and tested motor, derived from that K5 engine. Some people have berated Suzuki for not really pushing things on, but when they've created an engine as good as it is, although it's old, if they can get it through the emissions testing and get it to work in the modern day configuration that they need, why reinvent the wheel? It's a lovely 4-cylinder engine, really smooth, really nice power delivery. I'm not getting any snatchiness out of that throttle, and it's just a nice smooth flat linear curve on the power delivery. Incredibly flexible, as you would expect from a 4-cylinder. Doesn't seem to matter what gear you're in, it will pull. The problem I've got today is we've just had a massive rain shower, so you're going to see a mixture of footage, some of it sunshine and bone dry roads, some of it wet. It's a really lovely engine. Suzuki have been turning out some fantastic engines over the years. Obviously this has been around for a while in various guises. The new 800 that's in the AS, AR, 800DE and RE, I think again is a really lovely parallel twin. And this one certainly dependable, I would say. There's very little in terms of sort of problems long term or short term that I've heard of that crop up with this motor. It's strong, it's flexible, it's just as happy belting along the autobahn flat out as it is doing UK motorway speeds. You can pootle through town. As you can see, they're just a really beautiful delivery of power. It's not frantic, it's just efficient. It's just like, okay, let's go. The quick shifter is sublime, both up and down. I've had no misshifts, I've had no false neutrals. It seems to work almost at any rev limit, and it makes this bike a fun bike. If you want to just cover miles at pace in comfort, it's brilliant. But also if you want to have fun in the twisties, you know, you can easily take this on a track day. It is a really pleasurable bike to ride. So yeah, engine strong, powerful, smooth, slick gearbox. I don't normally talk about the brakes unless there's a problem, because you take it for red that you're going to have brakes that are going to be up to the job of hauling this bike to a stop, and these definitely do that and more. So in terms of suspension and handling, obviously this has the semi-active electronic suspension. We've already gone through the setting choices that you have. I've played around with it quite a lot. Each setting definitely has a distinct feel to it. I will say, however, though, that I have found that for general purpose riding, leaving it in auto seems to be the best thing, because it softens itself up for slower speed stuff. So as you go through the town, you get a nice compliant ride. When the road surface gets a bit jiggly like this, it's a bit washboardy, this road, which is why I come down here. It's a nice sweeping road, but it's not the best surface in the world. But it seems to do a really good job with this, and obviously the faster you go and the more you push the bike, the more it stiffens up. So for me, I would say leaving it in auto is good. It feels very composed. I get a lot of nice feedback from that suspension, and it's definitely one of those bikes that just goes where you point it. Sounds a bit flippant to say that because you'd expect that for most bikes, but there's no surprises. You can push on more and more, the harder and harder you want to push, it just kind of deals with it. So it's at home on the motorways, planting out loads of miles if you want to do that when you're travelling around town. It's a nice little docile pussycat, very easy, very relaxed, light clutch, everything else. When you get out onto the twistier stuff, admittedly the road conditions aren't great here, it's wet, there's still some mud about, but this is where this bike really comes alive. The combination of that smooth power delivery, the precise handling, it's a bike that feels light on the road. You know, we've already talked about the weight of the bike, which is to a certain extent less important on this sort of thing than it would be for maybe an adventure bike where you're picking things up all the time. But it feels very planted, it feels very solid, it feels very neutral, but it will really get on if you need it to. So overall for me, the riding experience is extremely pleasurable. I've got all the power I could ever need. It's easy to ride, it's comfortable. I think Suzuki have done a really good job on this, but you can put the luggage on that, and the integrated luggage on this is nice. It will take a crash helmet, but it still remains pretty narrow. It looks really, really good on the bike. Looks is something that's subjective. I haven't really spoken too much about that. I quite like this. Some people won't like that modern look with the small projector headlights in the front, but for me, I think it works well. Colour wise, this green is nice. I think I prefer the blue, but either colour works really well. It's a classy looking bike. The fit and finish is nice. I find myself increasingly saying on these sort of bike reviews, it's a lovely bike, because most bikes these days are. It's very difficult to buy a bad bike. It's all down to personal preference. If you're in the market for a comfortable, fast, well-spec'd touring bike, you'd be hard pushed to go wrong with this. It's practical, but it's also a lot of fun to ride as well. I can't see what's going on here. I'm gonna overtake that car, that tractor. There we go. But as you can see, completely effortless. Those are my sort of thoughts on it from its first initial ride. What I'll do is hand over back to myself to sum up and cover off some of the final bits of this first ride review. So what is my conclusion after the initial time I've spent on this bike? Well, it is a very comfortable bike to ride. It's a pleasure to ride. It does the mile munching without any fuss, and you can really have a lot of fun on it as well. Overall, I think this is a really, really good offering for Suzuki. It's got pretty much everything that you would want, and what it hasn't got on it, you can add to it pretty cheaply. The ride is nice, the performance is good, the comfort is decent. There's a couple of little niggles, but you know, they can be fixed. Outside of that, I think it is a really, really good effort. So if you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. And all that leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.